Choosing a projector screen in 2025 is way more complicated than choosing the projector itself. And in this video, I'm going to go through all of the nuances of picking the screen that's right for your projector and your space. But if you just want to know my general recommendations for each projector type, I've got those timestamped at the end of the video. But I do have 19 screens ranging from $59 all the way up to $3,500, half a dozen of the most popular projectors on the market, and over $15,000 of equipment to test them with. So stick around if that sounds interesting to you. The first choice you're going to need to make is also the easiest, and that's whether you want a fixed frame screen that hangs on the wall, a roll down screen mounted on the ceiling, or a roll up screen on an entertainment unit, or even on the floor. If you've got the space for it, a fixed frame screen comes with some major advantages, including better and more uniform tensioning, which prevents wrinkles on the screen, a greater variety of sizes and materials, and one underappreciated feature of a fixed frame screen is the ability to have large felt-covered bezels that block the small light border and overspill that many popular projectors have. In general, fixed frame screens are compatible with all projector types, with one exception being ultra-short throw projectors that have abnormally short throw ratios that may not be able to clear the bottom bezel, which results in a shadow on the bottom of the screen. If you go with a ceiling mounted drop-down screen, you can choose between motorized and manual versions, and standard and tab tension varieties. Typically, you can expect the motorized versions to cost more, but aside from the obvious convenience advantage of a motorized screen, another benefit is that they can be programmed to always unroll to the exact same height, which is easily configurable using the remote set points. While a manual pull-down screen generally has predetermined stop points every 1 to 2 inches, so you may need to play with your projector's mounting position to correspond to those stop points. As for tensioning, a non-tab tensioned pull-down screen will almost always have a slight curl in the sides of the screen and a subtle cup in the middle. And for most standard throw and short throw projectors, small tensioning imperfections like those will have no effect on the projected image. But for an ultra short throw projector, any small waves are significantly magnified by the steep projection angle and result in a wavy, distorted image that's basically unwatchable. So if you have an ultra short throw projector and you want a roll down screen, you should really only consider the tab tension varieties that use elastic lines to pull the entire screen outward, significantly reducing or eliminating any cupping in the screen. And last, unlike the drop down screens, which give you a choice for motorization and tensioning, almost all floor rising screens use tab tensioning and motorization. And like their ceiling mounted counterparts, the final height of the screen is completely configurable down to less than a centimeter using the remote set points. And the obvious advantage of both of these rollaway screens is that you don't have to have a large dedicated wall always taken up by your projector screen. And it allows you to put a large screen in a space that normally wouldn't be suitable because of window placement. But be aware that these rollable screens do have some downsides, including imperfect tensioning around the left and right edges, fewer available screen materials, and no borders to absorb light spill. Another popular option is just to forego the screen completely and project onto a painted wall, but that does present its own unique set of issues. First, just like using a non-tension drop-down screen, most walls are not as uniform as you think they are, and an ultra short throw projector is a great way to find out just how wavy your wall actually is. Second, because you're using paint, even special formulations designed for projection are not likely to give you the same level of ambient light rejection as some manufactured screen materials can. And third, people generally choose to project directly onto a wall when they want to achieve a massive screen size. But in those cases, you still need to account for speaker placement, and if you go with the screen, you have an option of choosing an acoustically transparent material, which lets you mount your speakers behind the screen. But no such option exists for projecting directly onto a wall. So then, after you've made the fairly easy decision of picking a screen form factor, the next important choice is choosing the screen material. The first measurement you need to understand is called screen gain, which means how bright the screen is compared to a pure white material called a Lambertian surface. Screens with reflective treatments and screens that have a lens structure can have gains above 1.0, meaning that they're going to increase the perceived brightness of your projector, while screens that have gains of less than 1.0 will make the projected image appear dimmer. It seems like almost everyone has a different opinion when it comes to how bright a projector should be, but typically a traditional home theater will favor a dimmer screen with a peak brightness around 100 nits, while most TVs can easily hit peak brightness values of 1000 nits or more. So when thinking about your screen gain, you'll need to decide if you're looking for more of a TV replacement, which would favor a higher screen gain, or a more traditional home theater experience, or maybe something in between. Regardless of the screen gain that you choose, it's important to understand that you can't really change the contrast ratio of a projector. So a 2.0 gain screen will double the peak brightness, but it will also double the black floor, and a 0.5 gain screen will cut both of those values in half, resulting in a dimmer overall image with the exact same contrast ratio. So if you're planning on watching your projector in a completely dark room, a very bright screen may not only be uncomfortable to watch, but it might also appear to have poor black levels, while a dim screen in a room with high ambient light will tend to look dull and washed out. So the next measurement we're going to focus on is ambient light rejection, which unlike screen gain can actually lead to a greater perceived contrast in your home theater. Not by increasing the contrast of your projector, but by minimizing the effects of uncontrolled light and reflections off of the screen. And the first type of ALR screen has been around the longest, and it's called angular reflective material. And it works by reflecting light on axis at an equal angle to its origin. And in this video, the Screen Innovations Black Diamond 0.8 gain and Elite Screens Cinegray 5D materials work on that angular reflective property. And as you can imagine, this makes them completely unusable for ultra short throw projectors, since the projected image comes in at a steep angle from the bottom and then leaves at a steep angle towards the ceiling. But you can see that same effect working in its favor, as the black diamond material rejects 94.2% of the ambient light from the lights directly overhead, but only 78.6% of the lights that are mounted directly above the viewing area, because they're coming in at an angle more similar to where you would normally mount your projector. The second type of ambient light rejection is called lenticular ALR, and it works by using a 3D structure in the material itself, where the top of each triangular region has a light-absorbing coating which blocks light coming from the ceiling, while the angled portions are reflective, directing light from the projector towards the viewing area. And all three ultra short throw lenticular screens that I have were able to reject around 90% of the light coming from directly above the screen, and between 65 and 70% of the light coming from the ceiling above the viewing area. And a brand new design has just hit the market in 2025 that's advertised as a lenticular screen for standard throw projectors. And the structure is similar, but instead of a sawtooth, it has two light absorbing triangular regions that shield the reflective strip in between the ridges. At least that's what's being advertised. But you can see that under a microscope, they look almost like a combination of a UST lenticular screen and an angular reflective screen. And in my testing, the 4 lenticular standard throw screens had very good performance for lights that were mounted directly above the screen, but unsurprisingly just middle of the road performance as the ambient light got closer to where you would normally place your projector. And while you can technically use a UST lenticular screen with a standard throw projector, with some caveats that I'll go over later, a standard throw lenticular screen is completely unusable with an ultra short throw projector. And the third and last type of ambient light rejecting screen is called a Fresnel screen, named for the concentric circle pattern that radiates from the center of the screen. And the Fresnel screens, designed specifically to be used with ultra short throw projectors, were by far the most effective at rejecting ambient light from every single direction, including above the screen, above the viewing area, and from the sides. And like lenticular screens for the last few years, Fresnel screens have really only been for ultra short throw projectors. But I do have one new Fresnel screen material from Valerian that's designed to work with standard throw projectors. But you can see that its ambient light performance isn't as impressive as the ultra short throw versions, only rejecting about 50% of ambient light from above the seating area compared to more than 90% light rejection on the UST Fresnel screens. And now that you're more familiar with different screen materials, let's talk about why you might choose one over another and why you may not want an ambient light rejecting material at all. First, the biggest issue with certain screen materials right now is something called laser speckle that happens with the newest generation of triple laser projectors. The image quality and color vibrance of a pure RGB triple laser projector like the Valerian Pro 2, Hisense C2 Ultra, and Hisense PX3 Pro are really something that you need to actually see to appreciate, but the downside is that on certain screen materials, areas with bright uniform color will look like they're sparkling. And that sparkling can be exaggerated if you move your head while viewing, or if you have certain vision problems like in astigmatism. I evaluated each screen material for laser speckle using the Valerian Pro 2 and Hisense PX3 Pro, and I found that by far the screen material that eliminates laser speckle the most is the woven acoustically transparent white screen from Silver Ticket. That was then followed up by the white spandex portable screen from Arzen, and then the Cinewhite UHD screen from IKEA/Elite Screens, and the IKEA Max White 2 screen. And after looking at all those screen materials under a microscope, it seems like the screens with the most surface texture are the best at eliminating speckle. And the screens that included reflective coatings like the Black Diamond, Cinegray 5D, and the high-gain Vivid Storm Fusion lenticular screen also had significantly more laser speckle than screens without reflective coatings. The ALR materials that had the least laser speckle for ultra short throw projectors were the Nothing Projector Black Series 0.6 gain and the 4Movie Fresnel screen. In comparing the 4Movie Fresnel to the AWOL Fresnel under a microscope, you can see that the 4Movie has a lot less reflective coating and more of an orange peel texture. And it appears that for lenticular screens, the biggest predictor of laser speckle is the screen gain, because under a microscope, the AWOL lenticular screens look basically identical to the ones from Nothing Projector, but they have noticeably more laser speckle, presumably probably due to their higher gain. The next reason you may want to choose one screen material over another has to do with the placement of your projector. And as it relates to ultra short throw projectors, by far the most common solution is to place the projector on a stand directly under the screen. But you can also ceiling mount a UST, which then does require you to flip your ALR screen upside down, which gets you the correct projection angle, but it also removes the screen's ability to reject ambient light coming from the ceiling. So if that's your plan, you'll also need to design your room to have more uplights instead of downlights. When dealing with long throw projectors, it's much more common to want to ceiling mount them, but that can also lead to issues with some ALR screens. And the most directional of all the ALR materials is Fresnel, and when projecting using the Valerian Pro 2 from a ceiling mounted position, you can see that there is a pretty large difference in the brightness between when it's mounted right side up and when it's upside down. However, with lenticular ALR screens designed for standard throw projectors, the difference between a right side up and an upside down screen isn't nearly as pronounced, and while I do think there was ever so slightly more brightness uniformity when the screen was upside down, it was also slightly dimmer. So if you do go with a long throw lenticular screen with a ceiling mounted projector, I would recommend experimenting with both screen orientations for your space. Angular reflective screens perform mostly the same in either orientation, but you can see that even the very expensive black diamond screen had pretty poor uniformity and was much brighter at the top of the screen when using a ceiling mount with the Valerian Pro 2, and with an angular reflective screen, the longer the throw ratio, the better your screen is going to look. So the black diamond is more suitable for a traditional home theater projector like the Epson LS12000, which can go all the way up to 2.84 to 1 throw ratio. So next, I tested how the various ALR screens would respond to off-center projection using both the lens shift on the Epson LS12000 and digital keystone using the Hisense C2 Ultra. And comparing these results to a non-ALR screen like the woven acoustically transparent screen from Silver Ticket, you can see that all the ALR screens have significantly worse uniformity when projecting from anywhere other than a completely ideal location, which again kind of makes sense when you consider the entire purpose of an ALR screen is to block light that comes from anywhere other than the projector itself. And the last reason you might choose to not use an ALR screen is viewing angle, meaning how wide you expect your seating area to be relative to your projector. Starting with the ultra short throw projectors, even though I have 8 different UST specific screens, there are really just 3 different screen structures because the Fresnel screens from XGME, Nexigo, Spectra, and AWOL are all basically identical and are probably all made by the same factory called F-Screen in China. And comparing the different materials, you can see that from a 45-degree viewing angle, only the white non-ALR screen had a completely uniform brightness. The lenticular screen had the next best uniformity, then the 4-movie Fresnel, which had some hot spotting, and the F-Screen Fresnels had the worst off-axis viewing uniformity, with hot spotting on the near side and a very dim area on the far side of the screen. For the long throw projectors, the results were very similar to what we saw with offset projection, where the white screen was by far the best with perfect brightness uniformity from a 45-degree viewing angle, followed by the lenticular screen that was very good except for some tensioning issues in the upper corners that we'll talk about later. The Fresnel screen had hot spotting in the top left side and dim areas in the other 3 corners, and the angular reflective black diamond screen had by far the worst uniformity when viewed off axis, with a massive dark spot in the upper right corner. So to sum it up as quickly as possible, ambient light rejection is awesome and can actually increase the perceived contrast of your projector compared to a white or gray screen, but it does require specific placement of both your projector and your seating area. And if your space doesn't allow for proper placement, you are probably better off with a non-ALR screen. So after all this testing, I'm sure you want me to just shut up and tell you which screen is best for each projector. And that's what I'm going to try to do. But honestly, I came to some pretty strange conclusions, so here we go. First, if you have a standard throw triple laser projector, you are going to want a screen that reduces laser speckle. And if you want to reduce that speckle all the way down to 0 and maintain great brightness, uniformity, and viewing angle, then the Silver Ticket woven acoustically transparent material is unbeatable. And the best news is that it is super reasonably priced and comes in a ton of different screen sizes all the way up to 162 inches. But here's where things get weird. If you want to reduce the laser speckle of your standard throw projector to almost 0 while gaining all the benefits of an ambient light rejecting screen, then I think the best screen material is the lenticular ALR screen that's made for ultra short throw projectors. And in the limited sample size that I have, it seems like the higher gain versions like the AWOL screen have slightly less of a midline hotspot than lower gain versions like the one from Nothing projector. And compared to the new standard throw lenticular screens, the UST versions have less hot spotting, less laser speckle, better uniformity, and are available in significantly more form factors. The downside of using a UST lenticular screen with a standard throw projector is that the gain is pretty low, around 0.3 near eye level. So the screen won't appear as bright, but in a dimly lit room, I found it to be extremely comfortable and enjoyable to watch. If your long throw projector has a single laser or a hybrid light source, or if you're just not worried about laser speckle, then I thought that the best ALR performance hands down was from the Valerian long throw Fresnel screen, which had a measured gain of 0.55, 81% ambient light rejection from overhead sources, and by far the best brightness uniformity compared to all the lenticular ALR screens. And the only downside that I noticed was that when it was flipped upside down for a ceiling mounted projector, there seemed to be some loss of brightness since the focal point of the Fresnel structure was no longer lined up at eye level. And even the viewing angle, which is typically a weakness of Fresnel screens, was more than acceptable even at 45 degrees. For the ultra short throw projectors with pure RGB laser light sources, like the Hisense PX3 Pro and AWOL LTV 3500 Pro, you'll also want a screen that reduces laser speckle. And like the long throw projectors, Silver Ticket's woven WAB material reduced the laser speckle to 0. But unfortunately, the texture of the screen becomes clearly visible with the steep projection angle of a UST, and it definitely causes image degradation. So the next lowest amount of laser speckle is from the Cinewhite UHD-B material, which also has the benefit of a nearly perfect screen uniformity and wide viewing angles. But if you're looking for an ALR material, the 4-movie Fresnel screen is the best at reducing laser speckle to a moderately low amount while maintaining extremely high brightness and rejecting between 91 and 95% of ambient light depending on the source. And in all of my testing and having personally used the 4-movie Fresnel for the last 2 years, I can tell you it basically only has 2 weaknesses. The first and the biggest one is that it's only offered in 100-inch fixed frame, which I know is a huge deal breaker for some spaces. And second, in certain very bright scenes, you can definitely notice the circular Fresnel structure in the top corners of the screen. And it's never been enough to bother me, but it's definitely something to be aware of. If you need a drop-down or floor-rising screen or one that comes in sizes over 100 inches, then the low-gain lenticular screens seem to be the best at reducing laser speckle. And in this video, that meant that the Nothing Projector 0.6 gain screen was the second place pick for my Hisense PX3 Pro. If your ultra short throw projector has an ALPD light source, like the Nexigo Aurora Pro or the 4-movie Theater Premium, then you don't need to be as concerned about laser speckle. And I thought that the Fresnel screens from Spectra, Nexigo, AWOL, and XGME, which are essentially all identical, had the best all-around performance with great build quality, huge amounts of ambient light rejection, and no visible Fresnel structure. And they had the added benefit of coming in sizes over 100 inches and often getting offered as a bundle with a projector purchase, which can save you a ton of money. As always, there are no sponsored reviews on this channel, but I do have links to all the screens down in the description. And as always, I appreciate when you use those links, since as an Amazon affiliate, I do earn a small commission on the sale at no cost to you. I'd also like to thank all of my patrons over at Patreon for their continued support of my channel. And if you're interested in supporting my channel, please check out the links down in the description. If you enjoyed this video, please consider subscribing. And as always, thanks for watching The Hookup.